Okay, I'm recording, but I'm not. I'm so used to hearing that now. Like so many parts of my day, I'm logging into Zoom and I hear recording in progress. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We have Dana, Ian, Emily, Michelle, Thomas, Amanda, Kelly, Christina, and Dino in Live. Pretty cool. Welcome. So just before we get started, I sent an email out a little bit earlier about skipping Christmas Eve class and doing a New Year's Eve session if anyone's open. A couple of folks here already said that they're into it. And then continuing for the first 3 weeks of January. And then we'll finish the book. And then we'll start it all over again, probably sometime in the spring. Because January, anyway, doesn't matter. Well, welcome everyone. I'm going to play a little bit of music, and hopefully I can be somewhat coherent. Take a comfortable seat if you're not already. Close your eyes. Thank you. All right, so tonight we are going to get into chapters 5 and 6, and next week we'll do 7, 8, 9, and I'll send you the schedule. And I think we have Dana giving us the overview of...
Yeah, kind of how...
I'm going to turn the screen.
Today and
where we are, how we got here.
How we got here, and what our game plan is for today. And so we are now on chapter 5, and we've gone through chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. And chapters 1 and 2 are essentially the problem, or sort of the human experience being presented to us, right? And we're associating, okay, where are we in this world? We have material attachments, we have people we love, we have duties and obligations, and how do we move through this world in a way that recognizes that, right? The first step is this idea of seeing who we really are, and this theme of vision is one that comes through time and time again, and not just vision like seeing, but truly seeing, and then also removing illusion, and there's all sorts of different and analogous things going on that all pertain to vision. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go through stuff today, because it really is, it's a unifying thread. And so chapter 1 and 2 are sort of who are we, and what can we see ourselves as truly. And then chapters 3 and 4 are the ideas being presented that here is how, once we finally have an idea of, okay, I am not this material body, I am a spiritual self, so that we can truly see, but we're still in the real world, right? We're still here in the practical world. What do we do? How do we navigate with this knowledge? And that's part of it. We have knowledge and then we have action. And so in what ways can we use the knowledge that we have and the actions that we take in this world in a way that's in line with that true understanding of who we really are? So doing things the right way and being aware of our true nature. And so today we're going to get into, and Mosey will go through them, but chapters 5 and 6 where we get into what does that actually look like if we can accept that we are not this material body and we're spirit souls, and we can accept that in order to go through this life we want to conduct ourselves in a way that's a higher pace. How do you do that? What does that look like? And that's what we get into in these chapters. So today is be more of a discussion, and we're hoping that we hear your thoughts on everything, and looking forward to it. So that's all.
Thanks, Dana. Anyone have questions or comments regarding anything, particularly regarding stuff we've already gone over? Zoomers? Well, let's, before I start getting into chapter 5 and 6, those of you who read, any verses that jump out to you from 5 or 6 that you want to just bring to the group?
What's a dog cooker?
We're going to get to that. So, Zoomers, I don't know if you heard, but Thomas just asked what's a dog cooker. Well, let's just start there.
What do you think?
Yeah.
One who cooks dogs. I mean, I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I got out of it, and I don't know if this is right, but it would be a soul or an existence that is even like at a lower point than even the dog. Because not only is it not recognizing the dog as a spirit as well, but it's going to eat it.
And you're referring to verse, I think it comes
It's
from
5:18.
verse 18.
Right.
And Thomas, what is that verse? Can you read that whole verse for us? Do you
Yeah,
have it?
someone read 5:18. I'm going to put it up on the screen for Zoomers.
The wise see as equal a learned, humble
Brahmana. Everybody try say any of these words that are a little different. We will try them after you. I'm terrible at pronouncing things. So Brahmana.
I'm going to start all over.
Okay.
The wise see as equal a learned, humble Brahmana,
Yes.
a cow, an elephant, and even a dog and dog cooker.
I have
a dog and a dog.
So I put up on the board to a different translation. This is by a great teacher in our lineage. His name's A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada. He says, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision, and this is important. This is what Dana brought up in in her little overview. Equal vision, sama darshina. It's right here, sama darshina. Sama is like where our word same comes from the Sanskrit. Darshana is to see. So the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision, and there's also equal vision records, if anyone knows. A learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. And so in HDG's translation, he translates dog eater as dog cooker. And it is this sva pake. My teacher, Grace, and I have a teacher who has spoken at length about this verse. So it's really jarring to read, right? And then when you read it in context and hear that with right knowledge, we have equal vision. So what we're learning as yogis is to have equal vision for all beings, from the top the most conscious, let's say, in the human realm, the Brahmana, which are the priestly caste, to the lowest of the people that cook and eat dogs. So it's like this, there's a hierarchy, but not, because what the gentle and learned Brahmana sees is all beings as equal. The cow, the elephant, the dog, and the dog eater. Because we all have the same spark of the eternal supreme inside of us. And this is like
one of the ways that we're being told. This is how
Yeah.
you do this. We see everything with equal vision. What do you, can we ask what you think that means? I mean,
absolutely.
what do you all think that means? I'm not going to say anything. I don't think Leslie will. I don't think Tina will.
For me, it kind of means like, as I'm going throughout life and I see like someone on the street doing something that is like, oh my goodness, what are they doing? Like maybe they're homeless and they're doing a fire under a bridge, but then I see them the same as myself or my neighbor who lives next to me in a house, even though maybe they're breaking a law or doing something that is like not on the path, that I don't judge them as less than me. That's kind of how I read it. So if we're vegetarian and someone's cooking dog, I'm not sitting there and saying, well, they are less than me. But that's how I kind of interpret it from
And
myself.
why do you think that? Why do you think they should be less? What's the idea underneath this? And anybody can answer. Why aren't we better than dog eaters?
Because we're all material bodies with a soul.
Yeah.
And all of the souls have been
Someone give
created
her a gold medal.
from the Creator.
Right.
So all souls are really the same, just experiencing different levels of consciousness.
No, true, and that's right. And one, that's that idea that we're recognizing who we really are, who you really are, who you really are, and that is something far purer than the sum of our actions in the world within these bodies. So.
Which is not anything on face value, because
Right, exactly.
we're not this body, right? We are our souls. And the body we inhabit now is just our vehicle right now.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get the body you're in right now? How do you
Um,
think you got it?
Well, I can only imagine.
So here's the thing, guys. Like, we've all been the dog cooker.
Yeah.
And Emily just said reincarnation.
Reincarnation,
Exactly.
yeah.
So we've all been the dog cooker. We are, we're really lucky to be in a human body, because in the human body we can have discernment, we can use our knowledge, we can use our intelligence to make choices that will help elevate us. And so can the dog cooker. Like that person, I have a past in this life, which is not, super pretty. And I've,
you could even argue that I've had new lives in this incarnation, that I have overcome through knowledge and wisdom, and other people having compassion on me, because it took that too. So there are grades of consciousness which you can see in the plant life. Everything's conscious. Anything by nature of being alive has consciousness. Every blade of grass, every leaf, every flower, every bumblebee, every cow. So that we are embodied. Like Acharya Dev H.D. Goswami spoke at our first class. He says we all have a body. Dehi is the Sanskrit. So we have this body and we're inhabiting in it for a short time. So what allows us to maybe make a choice that will help elevate us? Zoomers, you can go too if you want to come off mute. And I look like I have a horn.
Krishna's mercy.
Oh, mercy. Sammy went straight for mercy. Oh my goodness. You guys, Sammy has a really cool story of how she got where she is too. She's got it past. So, okay, mercy, and I'm looking for something else, which is going to connect with our conversation about chapter 5 and 6 specifically.
It's knowledge.
Hey, Cameron says knowledge. Does anyone know the Sanskrit word for knowledge? This is like,
Really? Just kidding.
I know. This is a big one.
What?
Vidya. And there's like a hair product company called Aveda, and I've always wondered why they chose that name, because that means like ignorance. So avidya is ignorance. So knowledge is vidya, and anyway. So we have knowledge, and you know, I can be super book smart and make really dumb decisions. Anyone relate to that? Like I am
Kind of
the opposite.
not very book smart, but you know, common sense, street smart. I think
Yeah.
I excel there.
Yeah.
I would say. I don't know.
That's great. How about Zoomers? Anyone feel like they have Sammy? Oh man. Well, yeah, we got some thumbs up.
Knowledge isn't knowledge. You have to necessarily learn in a book, even though we're
Yeah.
learning it in a book right now and teaching it to you. But it's like, you know, it's knowledge from also
This
Experience.
wisdom.
timeless knowledge.
Yeah.
Timeless knowledge applied is wisdom.
Yeah.
I came across in one of the footnotes, yoga is defined as spiritual action, which that's what I'm going to forever define yoga as. Of course, we know it's union. So the yoga that we are seeking in chapter 5 and 6, 5 talks a lot about this knowledge and using knowledge metaphorically. It lights up everything like sun in the daytime, and it takes us out of the darkness. We read that a little bit in the other chapters as well. So I want to tie this back to this idea of seeing. And so this verse 5:18 says, 5:18. This is one, like, if you want to start memorizing, it's a good one. The wise, and the word that this is, the Sanskrit actually is pandita, and our word pandit comes from the Sanskrit word. The wise see as equal, so that's the sama darshina, a learned, humble brahmana, a cow, an elephant, and even a dog and dog cooker. The next verse says, in this very world, those whose minds stand in equality conquer creation. And what this refers to is the process of life and death. Death, rebirth, life, death, rebirth, life, death. So if you can, in this very life, in this very world, those whose mind who stand in equality conquer this cycle. Were you going to say something?
I think this would be a good time to read verses 29 to 32 in chapter 6, because it ties right to that.
Yes.
It's the evenness of mind.
Yes. So we're going to jump. Just keep in mind this idea of seeing, and think back to the very first verse in Bhagavad Gita where the blind king, okay, so there's a metaphor, he's blind, he cannot see, asks his secretary who has divine sight, who can see with vision in the heart, what was going on the battlefield. So that was the very, very, very first verse in Bhagavad Gita. What do you see? What's going on between my sons and these other sons that are about to fight? And so we have this concept of seeing, like, straight out of the gate. And it comes up again and again and again in Bhagavad Gita. So,
So when you say seeing, are we talking about eyesight or are we just talking about consciousness?
All of them.
you tell me.
Consciousness, does it require vision?
So before we even get to these other verses, this brings up a pretty big idea. So the question was, is this just seeing, or is it about consciousness? What do you guys think? Anyone have any?
What do you mean by consciousness?
Okay, that's a
I'm sorry,
good
but-
question. Christina asked, what do we mean by consciousness? Simply put, again, the soul that lives in our body has three qualities: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And Sat means it's eternal, Chit means conscious, and Ananda means blissful. So we have, by birthright, just by our very existence, we are Sat, Chit, Ananda, eternal, conscious, and blissful. So consciousness is related to knowledge, to understanding. So in Bhagavad Gita, we hear a lot about ignorance. And like when Amanda got here, I was talking about like this funny little pithy line in the commentary that we can live in tiny prisons of our own mind. You're not really living. So consciousness is going to be the greater, broader view of understanding. I can live in the prison, tiny little prison of my mind, selfishly thinking that I'm making things happen, thinking that I'm responsible for everything, with, just so very little real really seeing the reciprocation that's required to get by. Like, I could go on and on here, but
I think it's the idea
I don't
that
want to spin out too much.
consciousness is hard to explain, right? What is and our very consciousness is the same thing. In my perspective, that creates a lot of problems for us as humans in general, because we think we're the controllers. We think we run the show. We think we can control, and it's like, it's because of our consciousness. What is, I don't know. What is just, we all know what it is, right? And that's that special thing that's different than our bodies. It just is. And so.
And it's not exclusive to our brain or even the
Nope.
cerebral cortex.
Right,
Which I just thought about this, and just as we're sitting here, I saw this science program about mycelium, which is a form of fungus, and they say it is one of the cornerstones of life on this planet. And they showed, I don't know if you remember seeing that, but they showed that mycelium, and they showed that through science, has consciousness. And they did it it feeds on a sugar, glucose, that's like its food. And so they took this mycelium and put it in this variety of labyrinths, and at the end of the labyrinth was its food source, and it would show it navigate through the labyrinth, and every time make progress. It would learn from its past failures and find the most effective way to its food source. And and it has no brain, it has no cerebral cortex. It's a single cell living organism. But it is life. And so it shows that at the most unrefined material form of life, there is still a very elevated consciousness, because it was able to navigate through that. It was on OPB, so it must be true. But it was fascinating. It was fascinating.
Life and not life, and earlier you talked about darkness and lightness, Leslie, and that's also like this idea. I think we're really, dualities in this world. I know you had wanted to touch on that, and that's kind of one of them. Like, what's life? What's not life? What's consciousness? What's not consciousness?
And we used to think it was exclusive to the brain.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
But science has proven that
Science.
It's in every cell in our body.
Yeah.
Which to me, I would even take it a step further and say it's not even in every cell in our body, it's in our soul.
What is our
Right.
Anyone else have any input on consciousness? Yeah.
I guess, so I was remembering something else, and I was talking about how like consciousness, what made us like thinking beings is like highly related to like the ego. And so it was, you know, a long time ago, what separates us is the distinction of like being beings that were just feeling. So like feeling hunger, feeling this, to like I am hungry. So like if you think of like my little dog Kiwi, Kiwi like probably feels hunger, but her sense of I am is different. Like, and that's like part of like what switched us to being these very conscious beings, to be able to do that. And then fast forward, like when we are like in this really modern world, it's this idea of like, when I'm not this, it's my fault. And so it's almost like we've gone from like the spectrum of this, you know, like hunger to I am hungry to all the way to the other side, and like this very modern world with like so many demands, to when we're not meeting our like most basic needs, like it's almost like our consciousness and our ego is like flipped to be against us. So that's sort of like what I've been thinking about. And yeah, like whereas it was created to like help us, now like it's almost against us.
It's what's interesting too. I think I think it's in chapter 5. It talks about being like that idea of having so much information, but nowhere, if it's not directed in the right way, then you're, by not directing it to whatever you want to call your higher power, whatever you think is supreme of you, and in this case it's Krishna, that the equation's out of balance, so we're living out of balance. And that imbalance is what contributes to despair, to having these expectations of the world that aren't being met, or feeling a lot of pain and suffering, or being isolated and alone. So we're so like on the other end of, we're like being disconnected.
Which one was that? 'Cause I remember reading
It's
that,
512.
I remember reading it and being like, oh, okay. Like, these problems have been along for a long time. Like, it was almost like, I don't know, it felt good to, like, I don't know, sometimes the modern world can feel so lonely in that.
Yeah.
And then reading it in this sense was like, wow, this has been such a
human
feeling.
condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like, I really,
The human
I really
condition.
enjoyed reading that.
Yeah.
The spirit soul condition.
Yes, the spirit soul condition. Well, some of these earlier verses in chapter 5, I'm looking at the Kindle right now. He talks about being linked in yoga. So that's what yoga is. So we can have all this information, all the knowledge, but if it's like super one-sided, we're gonna stay out of balance. But if we can just link it, if we can connect it through spiritual action, which is yoga, this definition that I love so much, yoga as spiritual action, then we achieve, he says in verse 6, linked in yoga, a sage soon achieves the absolute. Linked in yoga, a purified self, this is 7. Linked in yoga, a purified self who conquers self and senses, is not tainted through acting. So like when we're linked in yoga, we're beyond karma. We're beyond getting consequences to our action. Here, I'm gonna share screen. You guys are gonna see my mess. Oh, I see some knowledge of the whole thing's grace. Oh, Ayurveda. Oh, thank you.
What did Grace?
She was referring to my comment about Aveda. Thanks. I can like sleep at night now. Okay.
Thank you, Grace.
Yeah. So this is verse 8. I do nothing at all. Quote, unquote. I do nothing at all. Thus, a linked truth knower should think. While seeing, hearing, notice how seeing is first. That's curious. While seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going, dreaming, breathing, chatting, letting go, grasping, even opening and closing the eyes, one should hold this conviction. The senses move in sense objects. That's a really heavy thing to consider. Giving up attachment in verse 10. Giving up attachment and trusting actions to the absolute. One is not tainted by sin, like a lotus leaf untouched by water. I think I'm straying from this verse that we were referencing a moment ago. But the idea, look at all this colorful, you should see my actual books. They look just like this too.
May I
Okay.
may I ask a question?
Of course.
So is
Here, let me
so
stop
is the
sharing.
idea then that as long as, if we're doing actions that aren't based from like lack of impulse, if we're having some sort of emotional response and just maybe not reacting in the right way, as long as we're even mind, then our responses can be even, and so that we're not generating more karma or negative karma. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Did you guys hear that?
So,
And I wasn't very much a teacher.
And
So
is that-
thank you for allowing me to ask
so
questions.
that idea is your actions are actually being done in service.
When done in
When
service.
done in service, and then you are removed from really any
You're
consequences of
transcending.
it. Yeah, because there are no consequences because you're not even doing it for yourself.
But
Yeah.
I was also meaning not just actions done in service, that's a great point, and I agree, but the idea that like my responses to the world, like if I'm very hard to do when I'm upset with somebody, like I try really hard to think about it, and not the guy on the street, but your spouse or something, to really try to respond
To
to the
rise
situation
above.
in an even way that doesn't generate more harm or whatever. And
So I would just say that's equanimity.
Okay.
I don't know but if we're conscious all the time, which is it's what's being recommended. If we're conscious all the time, then we're in equanimity all the time. So all of our actions are hopefully going to be coming from that place. So this might be a good place to share about what happened today at Costco, but well, and it's related to these verses where we see all beings the same. And let's go. I'm going to go ahead and skip to chapter 6 real quick and just read these verses. Could I? I'm going to put them on the screen, and if I could have someone read, and it can be live, or in the Zoom. Right here, verse 29, 6:29. I can't highlight it because it's already highlighted, but we're going to read to verse 32. So starting at 6:29, with equal vision everywhere. Someone want to read? Go for it, Kelly. Kelly's going to read.
Equal vision everywhere, the yoga-linked self sees self in all creatures and all creatures in self. To one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am not lost, nor is that person lost to me. The yogi is one who abides in unity and honors me in all creatures. However living, that yogi lives in me. By self-comparison, one who sees everywhere equally in joy or sorrow is respected as the highest yogi, Arjuna.
Nice. I mean, that almost answers what you had asked, Dana.
Yeah.
Okay, so I bring this up. This is a really important chunk, and it isn't unrelated from 518, where the learned and gentle Brahmana sees the wise see the learned and gentle Brahmana, the elephant, the cow, the dog, and the dog eater with equal vision. So, we're hearing a lot of these same verses or concepts again and again, sort of told in different ways. And Dino and I were in Costco today. I had to get my card, my Costco membership card. I hadn't been in there in ages. And it was like 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Who goes to Costco on a Sunday?
Don't do it.
First of
You were there
all,
today,
Oh my
At 1
God.
o'clock,
Yeah.
probably around 1 o'clock.
how many people do you think were in there?
Oh,
Like
God.
like 150 cars at least in the parking lot. There had to have been hundreds of people inside Costco. It was stupid.
I go
Glad we
to watch,
didn't
I
go.
go to watch people fight.
I know, my husband wanted to go yesterday. No.
There's a zoo.
So We just went in to get my card. It took a minute
Yeah.
to go get my picture taken and then to print out a card and to start to walk out the door. Wait, you guys bought stuff today? How long did that line take you?
Maybe 3 minutes.
We did self-checkout.
Oh, okay.
Well, when
So,
you're walking out the door, they check the receipt.
Yeah, it was long, but it didn't take long to do.
Yeah.
Well, it took somebody a long time.
So,
here, you tell the story, Dino. You're more colorful than me.
well, I mean, it was pretty.
And it happened
so
to
we
you,
left the customer or membership stand, which is right by that door, and we didn't have anything, so there was really nothing for us to check out. So all the carts were kind of in a line, and so we just kind of were weaving through it. We kind of got bogged down at one point, and I'm going, and all of a sudden, I took a step, and a cart hit the back of my foot, and I was like, ah! And I turned around, and I looked, I was like, oh, and I just kind of turned back to look, and I turned back around, and then I heard this, well, that's what you get. And I turned around and I go, excuse me? She goes, that's what you get for cutting in line. This old lady. And
She
I just-
rammed him, you guys.
She rammed me. And I just looked at her and I just smiled. I just turned around. I just couldn't even believe it. But you know what? I just, it didn't move me. I was just like, wow. I've actually felt bad for her. Like, how are you feeling inside right now? You know, and we were just trying to leave the store. We obviously had nothing in our hands. And yeah, Leslie and I just walked out looking at each other saying, that poor lady, you know, I mean, she must be not feeling very good to want to like, the back of my foot for just walking past her. Yeah, it was interesting.
And those carts hit.
It hurt. It did, it hurt. I turned around, that's why I was like, ah, and I turned around and then, nope, and I heard, that's what you get.
So I bring it up because, you know, something like that can like tweak you, you know?
Years ago,
And you could
she
be
would've got
like,
a response.
yeah, so
She would have got a response.
so that's what we were,
15 months ago.
when we walked out of Costco, we were both like, man, you know, she's lucky we're so elevated. But no, I mean, it was more of like a, like, you know, there was almost like there was a dispassion, like not an attachment. We walked away and we were like, well, that happened. And isn't that, you know, I mean, it's like a crucible almost being in a store like that, you know, in December on a Sunday at 1 o'clock where, you know, people can get so heated for like no reason. But, you know, like Dana and I were talking about this earlier, like, you know, we have a social contract. You know, we agree that we're going to drive a certain way at a certain speed, follow certain rules, like wait in line. And, you know,
We didn't realize we had to wait in line.
Yeah.
We didn't realize we were part of that line, I guess.
so this yoga is to civilize us. And to civilize us, it also, you know, it's how we respond to other outside influences, especially, and that's why it's so important that we have to source ourselves from within. And like in chapter 2, it talks about this a lot, that, you know, even there's a verse that describes pulling in your senses like a tortoise withdraws its limbs. So,
As we were
you know,
pulling away from Costco, just in myself, I was actually glad it happened. Because as I observed how I didn't react, I realized that was a different MO for me. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't even think about, you know, reacting to her. I was just kind of like shocked and like, oh. You know, whereas before I would have had some type of reaction, like, hey, lady, why don't you, you know, but it was just, wasn't even a, you know, and this is really, yeah, it's.
Dino's Italian. So they only see like part of my forehead.
Yes, yeah.
So
Speak with our hands and our hearts.
loudly.
Lots of emotion.
Dino, that was the universe testing you, making sure you passed the vibe check.
That cart was meant to ram me in my.
Exactly.
Okay, that's working on.
To
me.
pass
He
the-
is. I mean,
pass the test.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I really have a way going, wow, this was
Yeah.
different for me.
Yeah.
Because it hurt. And I should, you know, that should have easily been a bridgeway to be angry. That could have been an easy bridge to anger because she hurt me.
Yeah.
That's being even-minded.
Yeah, but-
That's
but-
being even-minded, and what's so cool is Leslie says, I wrote it down. We have to source ourselves from within. And I love that idea. It's like, okay, let me pull back, let me take a moment, let me pause when agitated, and really think about how do I want to conduct myself in this situation right now that's consistent and true to really who I am.
Her actions diffused me, really.
That's super cool,
They
Dino.
really did.
I love
Diffused.
hearing that.
Yeah. I was just like, wow. And we just turned around and literally just walked.
Yeah. When you can think
But-
of,
I was
Sorry.
all kind of linked out.
Britt,
Oh, I was just gonna say to Dino's point too, it's like when even recently I've been put in similar situations. I mean, not being rammed with a Costco cart by an elderly woman yet. But it's like you're in this experience and something just really mean happens to you. And you just look at that person, but instead of getting angry or mad at them, I just feel bad. Like Dino said, what's going on in your life? Or there's something within them that's causing them to act out like this. And it helps me be really more compassionate to those people. And just kind of pause and think more about it, which is refreshing because I'm not Italian, but I can relate to just that automatic, let me tell you what.
whoa. I'm going to share screen. Cameron referenced verse 9 here. It's the pink one. Actually, let me read the verse before, 6:8. Or someone else in the room want to read? 6:8 and 6:9?
Should a soul content with knowledge and wisdom, who stands at the peak with senses conquered, is said to be linked, a yogi for whom clay, stone, and gold are equal. Still better is one with equal reason among the kind-hearted friends, foes, abstainers, mediators, the odious and kindred, and even among saints and sinners.
Yeah. Thank you. This is really, thank you for referencing this, Cameron, and I think in the spirit of where our conversation is going too, it's so beautifully translated, a soul content with knowledge and wisdom, who stands at the peak with senses conquered, is said to be linked, a yogi for whom clay, stone, and gold are equal. Still better is one with equal reason among the kind-hearted, friends, foes, abstainers, mediators, the odious, and kindred, and even among saints and sinners. Yeah. A few verses before this, HDG's translation's a little different than, actually, let me bring up Prabhupada's translation of 6 and 5 and 6.
Cool, we'll get different here, the two translations next to each
Yeah.
other. Because one word can have multiple meanings, just like in English.
I'll share screen again, and this is 6:5 and 6. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So in all of these verses, the mind is kind of it's almost like the gate between the outside world, the senses, the sense objects, and then the soul, and how our mind processes and what we do with the information. That's where the magic is, really. And we've talked about how we link our mind to our intelligence, like in the whole chariot metaphor. And like today when the lady rammed you at Costco, you know, you were using your intelligence. But even like beyond that, you were just nonplussed. And is that the right word? No? Damn it. You were...
It seems like it, right? Nonplussed, like, no.
Okay, I as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, I'm not using the word right. But just to be above, so transcending. And again we hear that if we're standing firm or if we're fixed in, and chapter 6 it's the yoga of concentration. If we're fixed, there's magic in that. If we can just stay concentrated. Any show of hands, who has a hard time concentrating? Yeah. So, but here's the deal though too, it's also the nature of our consciousness during this time in the cycle of time. This time in the cycle of time. It's called Kali Yuga, K-A-L-I, Kali Yuga. And it's an age of quarrel and discontent, and it lasts for 432,000 years on the Vedic scale. So it's one of 4 cycles, and we're kind of at the beginning. We're at the very beginning of it. It just started 5,000 years ago, after the Battle of Kurukshetra, which is what the Bhagavad Gita is leading up to. So in this time, we live in the time of quarrel, and it's just going to get more painful, it's more suffering. So in order to come to rise above, we're lucky though, is the thing. Like, we're human, and we get to choose, and we get to elevate ourselves by these practices. So
that's Kaliuga. I just saw a couple of you writing it.
Yeah,
down.
Kali.
Kali Yuga. Kaliuga.
I had something just speaking of getting distracted easily. I don't remember if it was this email or the one prior where you had recommended reading it out loud. And I love reading. I'm a quick reader, but I don't read out loud. And with these chapters was the first time I sat and I did, and just like pretty melodically. And I don't know if I think just doing it as a new practice, but also just how much the word self is used in chapter 6, both in this one and the next one. But it was just so wonderful. Like, it was just so, I felt like I was connecting to it much more than when I read in my head or any other way. But yeah, it was that bit, and especially the one that we read earlier, of the self, creatures in the self and all creatures, and I loved it. So because when I read, typically do get really distracted by so many things, and I really found the practice of reading out loud, saying this word self so many times over and over again, like I was able to connect with it much more and not be distracted. So yeah, so thanks for adding that.
It was going straight to your heart.
It was, I loved it. Yeah.
Krishna speaking to you.
You were concentrating, so you took one sense, right, your vision, your reading, one sense concentrated on this, and then you took it to what that's hearing. So then you start speaking it out loud, so you're engaging another sense, so you're more focused. I mean, you start licking the book. That's the point, right? And you engage as much as you can in it. As many senses as you reasonably can.
That makes sense, not the licking part.
Right?
But the whole sense thing.
Yeah, and that's
sense, yeah.
concentrating, and that's, it's a process. So that's, I'm going to read that, because I haven't done that myself. I will.
It was, yeah.
If you do it as an offering too, if you sit down to read and you're like, I'm going to offer this time to my higher self, or, if you have a spiritual practice that, is important to you, it could be that as well. So you link in yoga. The senses are really important in this practice because we have senses. And, I've said this before, we are sensory beings, and so we have to engage the senses in something higher. And like when you like burn incense, it smells nice. That's engaging your senses in something that smells nice or is covering up 3 Siberian Huskies in the house. There's that too. So there's, we want our senses to be engaged in something that isn't like, I always say this, that I teach aerobics, so I'll wake up with like a Britney Spears song in my head, and I don't want it in my head. So I'll redirect my thoughts into, and I have a mantra meditation practice. So that is part of what helps break or disrupt or interrupt or, something, like I can bring my mind back again and again. And so this is actually the last thing I wanted to bring up in chapter 6. Let me find the verse. So in chapter 6, Krishna gives kind of this big list of things to do on how to be a yogi. Some good news though, if you look at verse 16 and 17, these are some of my favorites that hit me when, upon the first reading. This is Krishna talking, and he says, yoga does not happen for one who overeats or solely fasts, nor one who habitually sleeps too much or simply stays awake. Here are these, you could call them dualities. Mm-hmm. But sorrow-ending yoga, spiritual action, does occur for one in whose actions there is proper eating and recreation, proper effort, proper sleeping, and wakefulness. So we need moderation. We need to regulate ourselves in order to be able to control our mind, to harness it, to, I can't control the Britney Spears song in my head. It's in there, but I can redirect it. I can, with proper effort, it says. Proper effort, proper sleeping and wakefulness. A yogi, this is 19, a yogi of controlled mind, practicing yoga of self, is compared to a wind-screened lamp that does not flicker. So that's that idea of steadiness again. Okay, so we've looked at it, we've jumped around, but I think it makes sense in this. Yeah, so Cameron, Kelly, I'm sorry, this is regarding what you had said when you read. Cameron said, because it's a psalm. It has a meter in the original language. And HDG said that when he translated it, his idea was to try to replicate as close as possible to be as close to the meter.
That's what's very interesting about Sanskrit. It's a song. The language is song.
Okay, so this is after the verses that we talked about that, you see me in all beings and all beings in me, one is never lost, nor is he lost to me. The yogi, by comparison, one who sees everywhere equally in joy or sorrow is respected as the highest yogi. So then Arjuna counters I'll put it on the screen. He's like, right here, verse 33, Arjuna said, this yoga with equality that you teach does not seem an enduring state due to unsteadiness, madhusudna. For the mind truly is unsteady, stormy, strong, and stubborn, Krishna. It seems harder to restrain than the wind. And the answer that Krishna gives is, he says, doubtless, great-armed, he's kind of ribbing him again, great-armed. The mind is on the move, hard to hold fast, but one catches it with practice and dispassion, Kaunteya. So this means the sun. He's referring to Arjuna's mother, whose name is Kunti, son of Kunti, Kaunteya. So he says, the mind is hard to hold fast, but one catches it with practice and dispassion. This is a really important concept. So he goes on to this is practice. In other translations, it's practice and detachment.
Performing duty without attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So come back to your practice
Do it.
without attachment to the results.
And what does it mean? What do you all think that means? But let's use me as an example.
Let's use you, Dana.
Use me as an example. No, and I'll ask the question though. So I'm an attorney. Say I go to trial, or there's a hearing, and there's an issue that I want. My client wants this, the other client wants that, and the judge makes a decision ultimately. What do you all think would be me being detached from the results? Anybody?
Not worrying about you either way.
You're getting paid either way.
Right, well, sure, so would it be being, I don't care, whatever, I'm getting paid? No.
No.
Not that one. Is it gonna be kind of dozing off during it? No. Is it gonna be like the judge rules and I'm like, Your Honor, I have been, no, it's not gonna or is it gonna be, it's going to be, at least my what I try to do is whatever the judge decides. I know we presented, I did the best, not the best job I could, and I did a crappy job. I genuinely did a good job. I researched the issue. I presented a reasonable, thoughtful argument. The other side, maybe they did too, and at the end of the day, if the judge made the decision that's not my client's and they're upset and I have to, okay, so be it. And I found, quite frankly, in my practice, this is only, from my practice being a bhakti, is that if I get really fired up about this, it doesn't help my client. If they hear me like, that is really, yeah, or, and I know that this, that happens a lot, and you want to advocate, but you need just also being able to be calm and respond, and it helps. So that's what it looks like in my practice, and that is not easy. It's not easy at all. But
So, as we say do our best to be detached from the results. Do we ignore the results, or are there lessons in those results?
Being honest, if I haven't done a good enough job, or if I thought, I should have done that, I need to see that. And be
So
like,
it's not
I
just
need
being
to do
detached from
better.
the results, but it's
Yeah.
also leaning into the results and maybe
Doesn't mean
trying to
not
find out what they are,
Yeah.
yeah.
Detached doesn't mean not caring. It's that whole idea too of not getting locked in and having some big emotional response to something that's not being even, that's not remembering who we truly are.
But I kind of think too, you have to be just thinking about my own work and comparing.
Yeah.
You have
That's
to
a
be
good way you should be.
detached from maybe even, in my world, getting results. Like I may never see results, and so.
Right. And then thinking about it in your own life, with your own work. Think about that. What does it mean in my life to be detached from whatever it is? Because we all have it more than one ways too. My favorite to do with myself, I'm going to be detached from the results of my conversation with my husband. That doesn't work at all, right? Never do I. Yeah. We're going to have a discussion, and I'm not going to. That one's an offer. So, multiple opportunities to practice everything.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and I think that's what Arjuna puts forth in the first chapter. He's like, hey, if I fight my grandfather and my cousins and all of these other kings, it's going to end in the complete destruction of society. And Krishna's like, you got to do your duty, man. You stand up and fight. Pick up your bow, But still, at the end, he gives Arjuna free will. He's like, have you heard me? This is in chapter 18. It's a spoiler, but it's a good thing to know. He tells him at the end, he asks, have you heard me? Have you listened? And Arjuna says, yeah, and then go do as you wish. So we have free will. All right, it's 6:30. Holy cow, wow. We've done it again. Who has anything we didn't get to tonight? Because there's so much we didn't get to. Yeah, oh, we have this beautiful, here, I can do it. I have it right here. This is a painting
related to what we've been talking about today, that God is in the heart of every single creature.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like truly literal representation. So cute. Okay.
Yeah, and if you zoom in on it, and I can send this out in the email. Like the tigers have the little Vishnu in their hearts, and the little birds and burbs.
Our
Yeah.
dogs call birds burbs. Burbs.
Okay, you have something?
Just it's a kind of trivial thing about a comment that was made about song earlier, and how maybe those words stood out to you because it was kind of put in the format of song. I remember hearing that song was invented before written word, because that's how information was passed on. And so when one person was go to deliver information, and all the information they had to remember, they get there, oh my God, how do I remember this? They would teach that information and put it in this form of song. So when they got there, they would just remember to sing the song, and all the information would come out. So it's interesting that I'm sure this, ancient, scripture here is, jumping off of that, how do we get this information and for people to remember it? And we'll probably see a lot of what resembles song in this.
That's a nice insight.
Yeah.
Let's ask HD.
Yeah.
He's gonna get so many dumb questions from us.
But it makes sense. I mean, it's easier to remember a song than remember a paragraph. You start singing it, you kind of get into that rhythm, and
I remember doing that in college to remember.
Or, I mean, even the
Sing it out.
ABCs.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Zoomers, anything? Okay.
I got a question, Leslie. How do
Yeah.
we see, last week's, like, the recording?
The recordings are on YouTube, and I've just been sending in the email that I send out like Wednesday or Thursday, the previous week's recording, but I'll send them all out in the next email. Yeah. And okay, so we're meeting next week, and then we'll take Christmas Eve night off, and then anyone who wants to come on New Year's Eve, we'll have a reading group that night.
Is that gonna be, because isn't there another thing here in New Year's Eve?
Probably. Yeah, but we should be done by then.
But I think that's fine.
Oh, is it? Oh, crap.
Because
Okay.
I remember being like, oh, I want to do that, but I'm doing that. And I was like, wait, those are in the same place.
Okay. Well, we'll figure out a schedule, and I'll holla at you guys. So we're definitely here next week.
And it's 7, 8, and 9 is the.
Yes, read chapters 7, 8, and 9. It's a lot. It's a lot. Well, thank you. Namaste, yogis.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Kind of sounded like